love standing at this podium on special days like today because we get to bring a great family home. First of all, I want to thank President McCullough for everything he did during this process, Board Chair Peter Collins, and the entire Board of Trustees for their belief, support of our unified vision for our basketball program. Also like to thank Nada Lucina, Greg Brown, and new advisory partners for their expertise in assisting us through this process. Thank Doug Walker, our Deputy Athletic Director, and Cindy Hartman for their assistance in putting up with me throughout this process. I'd like to thank Laura for putting up with me at the house during this process, and late night phone conversations, Zooms, walking around, talking to myself, and truly appreciate her. Coach Pat Kennedy, thank you for coming. I'd like to also thank former athletic director David and his wife Mary Colby. Thank you for your support. And of course, the entire Loucks family, Stevie, Charlie, Colby, Crosby. Nice to have you guys home. Many of y'all know Stevie was quite the swimmer back in the day in the 50 and 100, so she's the speedster of the family. So hopefully the girls get that speed, right girls? Mom's quite the athlete. I know it's a special day for Luke and the families today. I want to also start today with a few words about Leonard Hamilton. You know, we've been blessed in our men's basketball program for 23 years to have a man of impeccable character and class. When you look up class and character and integrity, there's always a picture of Leonard Hamilton right there. And we have truly been blessed by the university, what he's meant to this department, that program, more importantly, what his core values are all through this community. And you couldn't ask for a better man to lead this program for 23 years. So I want to thank Leonard Hamilton for all he's done. It's always great to bring home a Seminole family, and there's a few of them in there. But I can tell you through this process, Luke's preparation and really stood out. His passion for Florida State University. Every conversation we had, he just kept bringing it to a different level. And especially when you look at the analytical part of this game, his knowledge of this game, how prepared he was to talk about the future of Florida State basketball, we couldn't ask for someone better to lead this into the next decade plus, right? We'll be here a while. But he brings unique qualities to Florida State, and he fits our culture. And that was so important going through this process of identifying someone who not only knew the game, not only had a vision for where we were going to go in the future, but also who fit our other head coaches. When you look at our head coaches, we have the very best, and a few of them are here, Coach Jared, Coach Paul. We have the best coaches across the country. But more importantly, we have a culture amongst those coaches that is truly special. And it is very important that we found someone who could come in and be a part of that and fit Florida State. And we found him. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce the next head coach, Florida State University, Luke Loucks.
It's good to be home. It's good to be home. Flying in yesterday was a special moment for our family. Stevie was holding back tears the whole flight. Our kids were thrilled. They've been to Tallahassee a few times. We try to visit quite often, but they don't really know what it means to be a part of what we're about to be a part of. Stevie and I do, and we've been very fortunate and blessed to be Florida State athletes in the past. And we are absolutely thrilled to be a part of it now and for the foreseeable future. I'd like to start out by just thanking God, thanking Michael Alford, thanking President McCullough, thanking Peter and the Board of Trustees for entrusting me in leading this basketball program. We have a PR, one of our VPs of PR in Sacramento. Her name is Shannon, played volleyball at Wisconsin. And then through this process, Nada, I'm gonna call you out. In the interview, Sacramento, when I'm in front of a group of people, I constantly get feedback to get to your point, to land the plane. The reality is I'm a storyteller. All right, so this plane is going to circle the runway a few times. So if you need coffee, if you need a bathroom break, just raise your hand, I'll pause. But the reality is this may be a little thorough. All right, and I know the ACC is streaming this, and I appreciate you guys streaming this. I will fit it in the time. I'm going to start this press conference with talking about my wife, because she's the most important thing to what I do. She's the backbone of our family. And the reality is, if you're a coach, having a partner that understands what you do is it's not important, it is vital. You cannot coach at this level or any high level without a strong partner. Her sacrifice, we joke about, she's a single mom for most seasons, right? I'm flying, I'm preparing, we're on the road half the season, and even when we're home, I do my best to be present for my kids, for my wife, for our relationship. The reality is it's an impossible task, and you have to give up somewhere. So her sacrifice for our family, for me to be able to stand in this spot, I would not be here without her. So I appreciate you, I love you, and I'm happy for you to stick with me. And I'm thankful for that. Moving on, and Michael touched on it, just Coach Hamilton and what he's meant for this program. He's a man of extremely high character. I say he's a Hall of Fame coach, but more importantly, he's a Hall of Fame person. Again, without his mentorship, without his guidance, both playing for him, recruiting me, and then post-playing career, how he's helped me navigate as a professional athlete, transitioning into coaching, just his thoughtfulness and his mentorship has meant the world to me. I can't speak enough how important he's been to this program to lead them to the place of national relevance, where we've had 20 plus NBA picks over the last 20 years, making, and I could be wrong in this, so don't quote me, but I think combined current contracts in the NBA is upwards of $800 million. And a lot of that is due to Coach Hamilton, the type of kids he recruits, the type of kids I will continue to recruit, of high character, of high intelligence, but how he pours in to his players is something that I want to emulate. Right? He cares about the person more than the player, even though the player is important. So at the end of the day, we want to win games, we want to be competitive, but pouring into the person, right? He wants to develop good fathers, good husbands, good business leaders, which is going to go on far beyond the court, and that's what you see in his programs. And you saw it the other night. I was so sad that I missed his last home game, but I probably had 20 FaceTimes with former players who were just thrilled to be a part of his last day at Florida State. And so his mentorship has meant so much to me. He's a truly special man. And then moving on from there, what I think one of the things Coach Hamilton has done at an incredible level is surround himself with the best, right? Hire the best assistant coaches who he sees becoming head coaches. And that's something I'm going to try to continue. I want to be around the best coaches in America. And that's something Coach Hamilton's done. Starting with Stan Jones, who's one of the most brilliant basketball minds I've ever been around. He's been loyal to Coach Hamilton for 20 plus years now. He is absolutely instrumental to Coach Hamilton's success. So I want to thank him. I had a privilege of playing for him and having a close friendship with him. And then moving down to who recruited me, Andy Enfield. He's unbelievable, brilliant mind. And before Andy Enfield became Andy Enfield, I was playing tennis with him in Clearwater Beach when he'd come down and recruit me. And you can see the competitive nature and just the joyfulness that he had. And there was no doubt in my mind from the day I met him that he'd be a successful head coach. Other names that come to mind, Corey Williams, right? Corey is an unbelievably successful coach. All these guys came up through Coach Hamilton. Dennis Gates, another name that comes to mind. I have a close friendship with him. One of the most loyal, thoughtful people across the college basketball community in all sports. All of these guys come under Coach Hamilton's tree, just like I have, you know. And even Charlton Young, you know, CY wasn't at Florida State when I was at Florida State. And a lot of people don't know this. He actually recruited me to Georgia Tech. So I've known my mother and I went on a visit in Atlanta, and CY picked us up from the airport. And within 5 minutes, my mom's almost dying with tears from laughter, and his ability to connect will always serve him well. He's a bright basketball mind. He's going to be a head coach again sometime soon. And then even going down the list of guys you probably don't know, the Matt Kleins, right? He's an assistant for Dennis Gates out of Missouri. Guys that were here with me as student managers and GAs, right? Coach Hamilton has this innate ability to see something in people and produce basically what he became. And it's extraordinary, and I hope to continue that. A couple of thank yous really quickly to the Sacramento Kings, especially Mike Brown. Mike Brown's one of my mentors, along with Coach Hamilton, and another guy that I would not be standing here if it weren't for Mike Brown's mentorship. He's one of the first people I met in Golden State, far before I got to Sacramento. Mike Brown and Ron Adams, two veteran coaches that did not need to do this, but pulled me under their wing separately and taught me how to coach, taught me how to teach, taught me how to prepare, taught me what's right, what's wrong, how to operate, especially when things get tough. And in this business, a lot of adversity hits, and the way you handle yourself, far more off the court, is oftentimes going to be much more long-lasting than what you ever do on the court. And those two, but especially Mike Brown, his mentorship, giving me opportunity after opportunity, some of which I probably didn't even deserve. But he saw something in me to build me up, and it led me to this point in my career. Another guy in Sacramento who's now the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, Jordy Fernandez. Myself, Jordy, and Mike all coached the Nigerian team together in Sacramento. Jordy's mentorship, his friendship, helped me tremendously as I navigated new roles, new positions, new responsibility. He's an absolute tremendous coach. He's going to be an NBA Coach of the Year, and what they're doing in Brooklyn is really special. The Phoenix Suns, James Jones, Monty Williams, who gave me an opportunity to join their team. We had the best record in the NBA that year, a super successful year. It was very short because I left for Sacramento so quickly. But both of those guys have had a huge impact on my life. And then other people in Phoenix I worked with, Kevin Young, who's now at BYU, B. Gates in the 76ers, Ryan Resch, and their whole front office was incredible to work with. In Golden State, Steve Kerr, super thankful, can't put it into words how meaningful it is that he gave me my first opportunity as a coach. And I was a player and I was trying to navigate. I knew I wanted to coach eventually. And he threw an opportunity, created a role for me. And in that role, I was able to learn, I was able to grow, and I was able to learn how to operate. And all of those things have helped me along my journey. But without Steve, I don't know that I ever get started in coaching. So special thank you, Steve Kerr, the Latham family, Kent and Kirk, I have a strong friendship with and close relationship with, and their executive and ownership team. And those years in Golden State were truly special. We had some of the best teams in the history of basketball. I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by people, both on the coaching staff, executive level, but most importantly, the players who coached that had a tremendous ability to have the world's best talent, but operate and work like they were the least talented team on earth. And when that happened, special things happened. You saw championship after championship. So for me to work with those guys was truly incredible. One of the last questions in one of the last interviews that Mr. Alford asked me, and surprisingly enough, a few hours later, President McCullough asked me the same question as his final question was why? Why do you want to do this, right? You're on this great path in the NBA. Everyone says you're going to be a head coach eventually, which I'm honored and thrilled that people would say that about me. Why would you want to come back to college? And I gave the same answer, I think, pretty closely, and it's twofold. And number one, there's an emotional connection to Florida State. One of my first memories as a child, I don't know how old I was, I can do math real quick, but the 1993 National Championship game. And I'm at my grandfather's house. You know, my dad's there, my mom's there, all the brothers, sisters, cousins, both my dad's brothers who both went to Florida State. So it was a true family get-together. You We got food, we got music, we're watching the game, they win, it's a stat day, and it stuck, it's a core memory of mine from the time I'm 3 years old. And then the '99 national championship game, and I grew up this Florida State football fan, and a fan of their players, and the brand, you know, it was truly a huge part of my childhood. And then fast forward, obviously, playing here, right? And I met my wife probably 40 feet to my right. And it was literally the first day on campus. We're both dating other people. Florida State used to run something called a bridge program, where the new athletes come in, and the older athletes show them around, right? So they show them around campus, where to eat, where to go to class, where you're gonna live. And so Stevie was fortunate enough to be my counselor. And so we literally, maybe the first person I met on campus was now my wife and the mother of my children. Now there was some in between of how we got to dating, and that's for another time. And see, I'm not landing the plane yet. I'm still in the middle of the story. But the reality is this place holds so many special memories for me, and even beyond playing here, right? Watching the 2013 national title game when we're living in Belgium and playing professionally, our kids all have Florida State, you know, jammies they wear to bed, and we try to explain how cool it is to be part of the Florida State community. So that's the emotional side, right? You have this like burning desire because you've seen it, you've felt it, and what it feels like to win at Florida State, and there's nothing like it. You know, when we were here, there were ACC championships in football, in baseball, and in basketball, and we could feel how important that community was and how much fun that is to be a part of it. So that's the emotional side. And then the career side is and anyone that knows me knows I'm pretty competitive. I can't turn it off, and I want to win. I want to win everywhere I go. I don't care if I'm playing ping pong, deck of cards. I'm going to find a way to beat you. And if I don't, I'll keep trying. I'll invite you over the next night. You're going to keep coming over until I find a way to beat you. And so career-wise, I want to be around the best. And the reality is Florida State and the athletic community is one of the best brands in the world. Again, I've seen what it feels like to win at Florida State, and I want to be a part of that. And I want to lead. And that's totally separate from all the emotional things. If I never played at Florida State, if I grew up a whoever fan, I would still want to come to Florida State and coach because I know this place is special. Moving forward, and I truly believe this, every great coach, no matter what the sport is, has a standard. They have a standard of the way to do things. And mine has evolved. I learned a lot from Steve Kerr, I learned a lot from Mike Brown, from spending some time with Monty Williams. But also my father grew up a football guy, so he would always constantly bring home Tony Dungy quotes and Bill Parcells quotes and Bill Walsh quotes and Belichick quotes and all of these guys, and especially in our sport, the championship level coaches all have a championship level standard before the results ever come. And that's something that I truly believe in, that I'm going to bring to Florida State. My players are going to feel it, my staff's going to feel it, the administration's going to feel it. My standard is very simple. It's 5 things, and I'm going to go through them really quick. So the first one is be on time and be present, right? Have the ability to respect people's time, show up on time, and when you are somewhere, be where your feet are. There's so many distractions in the world, social media and phone calls, especially in our positions of leadership, that a lot of times our mind wanders, right? And the same with your players, all the pressure they have, their agents, their families should be scoring more. But the reality is, if you're not present, you're not anywhere. So be present, and then just respect people's time, show up on time. The second thing is put the team first always. And this is a really challenging one, especially for this generation of athletes. Everyone has an ego at some level, right? There's a competitive desire to be the best individually, but the reality is we play a team sport. And I tell my guys all the time, if you want to play an individual sport, you know, go play golf, go play tennis. Great sports, good environment, you still compete. You don't have to rely on teammates. Go be a swimmer like my wife, right? Just race the person next to you. But the reality is, if you want to succeed with a team sport, you have to sacrifice something for the team. Everyone's not going to score 20 points a game. And you have to constantly remind yourself that I need to help the guy next to me. And if a room full of players does that, special things can happen. So put the team first. Third part, and again, I touched on this, and it's probably my favorite of all my standard, is have a competitive spirit, right? You will not win at a high level if you don't compete. And it has to be a contagious competitive spirit where if anyone does not compete, they stick out like a sore thumb. And to be honest, I'm not gonna wanna coach those kids. I want the most competitive group of kids in college basketball. And I will be relentless in finding that as I recruit, as I find the portal kids, as I go recruit high school kids, international kids, as I re-recruit my own players with the way the dynamics are. I will find the most competitive group that I can find year in and year out. All right? Number 4 is a Belichick quote, and I know he's our enemy now in North Carolina, but obviously you got to respect what the guy's done in his career. Is do your job. Show up and do your job. In addition to that, Pete Carroll had a saying. We spent some time with the Seahawks in their training camp, and he had a saying: "No whining, no excuses." So that's number 4. Do your job, no whining, no excuses. Golden State, Draymond Green added some profanities, which I'm not going to get into in this press conference. But in private, I'll fill you in on those. But if you have a group that shows up, they know their role, they know their expectations, they know what their job is, and every single person in the room executes their job, collectively special things can happen. And finally, number 5 is find joy, right? We play a child's game. I coach a child's game of putting a ball in a basket, right? And the reality is that should be fun. You should find some passion and some enjoyment in what you're doing. And if you can't, you probably got some issues, right? And to be frank, I don't want to be around you, right? And your teammates probably don't want to be around you. So if you have a bad attitude, I'm gonna try to help you, but a consistently bad attitude, you're never gonna succeed at the highest level. So just from again, land the plane. I know that's a lot, but that is my standard. That's my team's gonna feel. And that has nothing to do with X and O's, with analytics, with style of play. But every time someone walks in our building, I hope they feel those 5 things. Moving on to basketball philosophy, right? And I'm not gonna get too nerdy on you guys, but I'm curious, right? And I think the best coaches in the world have a level of curiosity of finding the best ways to do things and constantly doing that over and over and over again. Because the reality is we all think we got it figured out. We think we know the best way. The other reality is someone else is finding a better way. And if you don't constantly stay ahead of that, you will get caught and you will get passed. So if you boil basketball down to the most granular level, right? It's a game of efficiency and a game of possessions. If you can win the efficiency battle and you can win the possession battle, you're in a great shot at winning every game. And there's a lot that goes into efficiency, right? Style of play, pace, space, creating efficient shots, what those most efficient shots are, how you create them consistently, how the defense is going to stop that, how you adjust to that, right? But there's a level of understanding of what efficiency looks like that my team will understand. And the second part of that, if you're not going to be efficient, because there's always off nights, you miss shots, the ball's not falling, you have to win the possession game. How do you create more possessions to get more shots, right? It's just basic math. If you're not going to be more efficient, you need to create more shots. Or you limit the opponent from getting more shots than you do. And so there's a lot that goes into that, right? And I'm not going to cover all that right now. But my most basic basketball philosophy is win the efficiency battle, win the possession battle. Offensively, I truly believe that the pro style is starting to mesh with the collegiate style. For a long time, those two were vastly different, right? You watch a college game, you watch a pro game, completely different. More and more, you see successful teams playing a pro style, right? And so I'm going to bring some of that, but also meet the college game in the middle a little bit. So it starts with our pace, our space, right? You gotta have great pace, and you gotta have great space to become efficient. It's much easier to score on the defense when they're not set. As soon as the defense gets set, especially in college with the spacing rules that we don't have in the NBA, the reality is it becomes much more difficult, your efficiency drops. So you gotta play with pace. And I tell my players, if you play with pace and not great space, if you don't know where to go, right? It feels like a traffic jam. It feels like Tennessee Street at 3 p.m. You're trying to go fast, but there's bodies in the way, right? You can't get to where you're going. And that creates chaos, and that creates turnovers, and again, that's where you lose a possession battle. The third part of my offense philosophy is touch the paint, right? If you attack the paint relentlessly, you will create an advantage, all right? And whether that advantage is getting all the way to the hoop, one of the best shots in basketball, the best shot in basketball is a free throw, because it's wide open, you get to take your time. My players will be able to make free throws. It's very important to me. But the second most efficient shot is a layup or a dunk. And so you have to attack the paint to do that. And again, it goes into your spacing, you have to create driving angles and gaps. But a relentless attack of the paint does two things, right? You get those efficient shots, but it also collapses the defense, right? And that's as a defense coordinator at Sacramento Kings, it's constantly how do you keep people out of our paint? And then the secondary is how do you protect the rim? Reality is if you're protecting the rim with a help side defender, you're bringing an extra body and someone else is wide open. And so paint touches create rim attempts, free throws, but also kick out threes, which would be the third most efficient shot in basketball. And then lastly, my fourth offensive staple is crash the glass, right? Create extra possessions with aggressive offensive rebounding. Again, analytically, I could go through all the numbers, both collegiately and professionally, of what these look like. But when you crash the glass and create offensive rebounds, you create some of the most efficient shots in basketball. The putback, and again, the kick out three because the defense has collapsed. Defensively, starts with communication. I explained this to Michael, I know he's a baseball guy, but every defense that's ever been any type of good defense communicates at a very high level. And it starts usually with your big who's behind the play, because they can see everything in front of them. So to recruit and our evaluation, big fellas that can communicate effectively to the guards in front of them. If not, they're getting smacked by screens, everyone's mad at each other. So a level of communication, and that communication builds trust. The second part is ball pressure. Obviously a staple of Coach Hamilton's for a long time. I've always believed in pressuring the ball. It creates disruption, creates turnovers, which leads to extra possessions. The reality is I was very poor at it. And if I were Coach Hamilton, I would have never played myself. But the other reality is because I knew I was poor at it, I knew exactly where my help was going to be. So that level of intuition when you pressure the ball, it's not a blind pressuring of the ball, right? You know where your help's built in, you know where your big's at, you know where to angle people, and to me it's very important. The third part, if you just flip the offense defensively, you have to protect the paint, right? If you allow the ball to consistently penetrate your paint, you're going to be in a world of hurt, right? Whether it's creating shots at the rim, kick out threes, fouling goes up. So there has to be a level of ball pressure initially, and then help behind. You have to trust and know where your teammates are going to be. And then lastly, finish every possession without fouling. And again, it goes into the free throw is one of the most efficient shot in basketball. So we want to get rebounds and we want to contest shots without fouling the ball. So I know that's long-winded, and I will go into much more detail, and it's something that we've done in Sacramento, something done with the Nigerian team. It's something that I've seen in Golden State. And I'm going to do this with you guys. I'm going to invite the media to one of our practices before training camp starts, before the preseason starts, to put you guys through a film session and put you guys through some drills. So we'll tape you guys up. We'll get you some jerseys. It's going to be we'll have food after. We'll get some good barbecue. But you guys will understand when you watch our games what we're trying to accomplish. There's going to be no confusion, and our players, most importantly, will understand our vision and our style. Right? Is going to be a style, and I'm not going to go into the teams that play like this in college, but I promise you they're very successful. In closing, and again, I'm going to keep repeating this, it is an absolute honor and privilege to lead this basketball team. Our family could not be more excited to be back in Tallahassee. Just being in this room, it brings me back to college and how many times I had to sit in these seats and yawn while someone like me is up here talking. So I appreciate you guys being here. So many familiar faces, and I'm not going to get emotional right now, but it is an absolute honor to be back and lead this team.